That's all centre comes back here as well.
Right, we shall get going, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to PTPWG this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Just the usual reminder, those remotely, if they could remain muted and with their cameras off, and everybody in the room, if they're online, remain muted as well to avoid any feedback. This evening, we are joined by our Planning Manager Policy, Natalie Earle, our Principal Planning Officer, Anna Stoner, and our Planning Policy Officer, Chris Mansfield, as well as Kelly from Democratic Services. So thank you very much for all of them. We shall move on then to item 1, the emergency evacuation procedure. Are we all content with the emergency evacuation procedure as normal? The emergency exits are as signposted, and there is no fire alarm planned this evening. Nobody requires assistance to get down the stairs. Excellent. Thank you very much. So we shall move on then to item 2, apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Kieran Golding, who is substituted by Councillor Angela Harrison, and Councillor James Hunt. Have you got any other apologies?
Councillor Hayden Braun.
Noted. Thank you very much. Any more? We have got a few missing, but they may be on their way. The traffic in Sittingbourne was slightly challenging this evening. So, item 3, minutes. Can I have a proposer for the minutes numbers 186 to 189, which we held on the 15th of July? Just a note for those who have received the update on the evidence base, though it's not included in the minutes, that is, officers are happy to answer any questions about that after the meeting, should they require it. It will be coming forward to a future agenda when we get to that stage of the process, just so people aren't confused as to why it's not on there. Thank you, Councillor Whiting. Any happy to second? Anyone? Councillor Kavanagh. All happy? Agreed. Thank you very much. I shall sign those. So we shall move on again then to item 4, declaration of interest. Any declarations of interest? Moving swiftly on then to the statement of community involvement and the results of public consultation and adoption. So I shall hand over to our officers to present this evening.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. So the Statement of Community Involvement, also known as the SCI, sets out how the community can get involved in local planning matters. It explains how people can play a part in the preparation of local plans, neighbourhood plans, and supplementary planning documents, as well as the consideration of planning applications and dealing with unauthorised development. It also sets out what is expected from those proposing developments. Local planning authorities are required to produce a SCI and review them every 5 years. The current SCI was adopted in 2018 and updated in 2021, largely to reflect health guidelines related to COVID-19. As such, the SCI is now in need of a refresh, and therefore, on the 16th of October 2024, the draft SCI was agreed for consultation at Policy and Resources Committee with minor changes. The draft SCI went out for consultation on the 21st of May for 6 weeks. The consultation attracted submissions from 6 individuals, 3 statutory consultees, 2 local authorities, 2 parish councils, 1 business and 1 utility company, totaling 54 comments. The questions that garnered the most responses were 1, 4 and 7. The majority of comments were supportive of the document overall, although many suggested amendments, which have been included where these improve clarity and understanding and don't have a significant resource implication for the council unless the benefits merit the costs. Comments included criticism of the historic approach to consultation by Swale Borough Council, concern that those without access to computers or digital engagement may be left out of consultation processes, need for varied engagement approaches to reach wider sections of the community, requirement for applicants to carry out engagement and to report back on their own community consultation processes and how these have influenced their applications, adding a glossary, adding references or links to legislations and more detailed explanation of the system and processes, and seeking direct engagement with tourism operators and caravan park owners. A spreadsheet of comments received and proposed changes to the SCI can be found in Appendix 1, and a draft updated SCI can be found in Appendix 2. The recommendations are to note the proposed changes to the draft statement of community involvement found in Appendix 1 and 2 for recommendation to Policy and Resources, and to recommend that Policy and Resources Committee agree the proposed changes to the statement of community involvement and that it proceeds to full council for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have I got any questions on the report? Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Chair. No, I didn't have any questions. I'm quite happy to propose the two recommendations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bonney.
Yeah, I've got some comments, but I don't know if you want questions first, and then I don't mind which way.
Yeah, if we could do questions first, then if we've proposed and seconded, we can have the debate as usual.
Yeah, okay.
Just bear in mind the discussion we had about community involvement generally. Forget when it was, fairly recently. Some of what's in here doesn't necessarily, in terms of length of consultation, doesn't seem to marry up with what was proposed at that Policy and Resources meeting. It was a long and involved discussion about length of consultation, but I note that 6 weeks is mentioned in here for local plan consultations, and that was specifically mentioned as part of the discussion. I can't exactly remember whether it was carried or not, but the length of consultation for local plan was very specifically mentioned, and I wonder whether we needed to look at this report to reflect that.
My memory is that we didn't pass the specific motion, and we concluded that that it being a minimum was sufficient, that the local plan could choose to consult longer if we wished to, and that would fall within the exceptional circumstances that were laid out in the policy that we discussed at PNR. Councillor Whiting, then Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mine was just a question about the glossary. Certainly the one I've got, the glossary is to follow, and we're being asked to sort of okay a glossary that we've not seen. Or, I mean, I'm sure it will be a perfect glossary, it'll be wonderful. But it would have been nice to see it. Is it simply not available yet?
Yeah, it's purely down to resources and timing, but it will be, you know, the usual glossary that you will have seen in the last local plan. It will be ready for P&R committee when the decision is made, yeah. But it'll be all of the phrases, what are they called? Acronyms, sorry, that are used throughout the document will then be in the glossary to help explain all of those phrases and standard, you know, words, used within that. I won't be doing it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. It's very helpful, just as long as we kind of note that in the minutes so that, you know, PNR are at least aware that we've not seen it in recommending it to them.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. Anna.
Oh, I was just going to say, is there anything specific that you wanted to be in the glossary that wasn't clear from the document? Because yes, I thought it was a really good idea to have a glossary, but actually I think all the terms are actually defined in the document itself. But I think it's just as good practice, we should have a glossary, and it'll basically be the glossary that we use throughout all the other local plan documents, just because there'll be a standard glossary for all of them.
Very grateful, Chair, because I think with a lot of documents, we use a lot of acronyms in local government. Planning officers seem to use more than most because they need to, because otherwise reports would be hundreds of pages long. But it's really important when we're trying to communicate with members of the public and the general public that they understand what those terms mean. So I do think it's that's why I've labelled it slightly. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm sure Kelly's got that for the minutes. Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think you mainly covered what I was going to say, but as the councillor who put forward the suggestion that the local plan should be specified as being a longer duration for consultation, that didn't get approved as such. What we did agree was that the relevant committee would have the discretion to extend the consultation period if they saw fit, which was the sort of compromise that was agreed. I do have some comments on the report, but I'll leave those until we come on to comments.
Thank you very much. Is that all the questions? And if so, sorry, Councillor Gould.
Just on the part about the engagement process for planning applications, the flood risk, water quality and water resources has been highlighted as a material consideration. Is that an additional, has that been inserted as a result of the consultation, and to what extent is it a material consideration? Because from my memory, we keep on being told that this is a statutory obligation and therefore can't have an impact.
Southern Water asked us to include reference. Yeah, I think, let me have a look. Where is it? It's right at the beginning of the chapter, isn't it? I mean, I think it's in the same way that the other issues are material considerations, it's a material consideration. Have I misunderstood something? What I don't quite, what do you mean?
I was just wondering whether this was an addition or was just a highlight or something that was always there, but we've just brought to the fore in this.
I think it's just been brought to the fore by Southern Water's comment. And you've got things like air quality and traffic being, but you hadn't had any, there weren't any water references to water. I mean, we could make the list longer.
I'm very happy to see that in there, but
yeah. They did want references to sustainable drainage as well, which I thought was going a bit too far. But I thought flood risk, water quality and water resources were sort of quite good catch-all phrases.
Excellent, thank you. If there are no further questions, have I got a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Kavanagh, thank you very much. So open the floor to debate. I've seen Councillor Bonney and then Councillor Speed.
Okay, so picking up on that sustainable water, I agree with the councillor that it should be included, but sustainable drainage is actually, I think, really important, and that's certainly coming out of the Highstead Park inquiry, is for the failure or omission to do that, especially on a large scale. And talking about statutory authorities, I think in here we do need to be explicit who, because we're talking to the public about who we're expecting to work with and who are statutory authorities, and I don't think even members, let alone the public, know the comprehensive list, and I think we should spell that out. Let's go through my list here. So that's specific, that we need to have that list of who those statutory authorities are. With regards to engagement, I just want to make sure that we're fairly explicit on how we're going to do that. I think there's been a lot of unhappiness previously where we've said we'll put one copy in a library, and actually the rest of it's online and it's quite unwieldy. So I think we do need to be, how are we going to reach these harder to reach groups and what are we going to do there? In terms of the feedback on how representations are influenced in the plan, I definitely think we need to tighten that up. So promises to feed back, inverted commas, where appropriate. The MPPF expects us to be transparent in our reporting, so I think we need to be a bit more explicit on that.
so that coverage. The duty to cooperate, have we been explicit enough, I think is my comment there, on how we're engaging with our neighbouring authorities? There are some other things like our commitment to review this document within the next 5 years. I think we do need to make a commitment in there, because that's a fundamental weakness. I think the government says it, but we need to be specific in there. And we can't kind of point to, sort of fluffy wording to where elsewhere. I know we would like a degree of fluffiness, but actually that's where we'll end up in a position of where we were last time, where we got a threat of JR because we hadn't met our statement of community, our SCI. So we need to be explicit and do it. In terms of planning applications and timeframes, I think we want to be explicit there as well. So this is making sure that this is best practice, and sort of ironing out some of these sort of weaknesses. So I'll leave it there for the minute. I'll just check my list.
Thank you, Anna. Raising your hand or not? Me? No. So I'm sure we can take those comments on. Certainly, I think the I think the list of statutory consultees is definitely a glossary solvable problem. The rest of it might take a little more thinking, but we'll get through it on that. Councillor Speed.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd certainly agree with Councillor Bonney about engagement, and we need to be much more proactive in our engagement with residents, because you publish a daunting 1,000-page document, and residents do need help being guided through what the implications are for their area. In terms of my comments, on page 41 at 713 and 714, it talks about the council encourages those preparing applications to positively engage with local people to help prepare and refine their proposals. And at 714, it refers to a table which sets out suggested methods of engagement. Thinking back to the application to build 10 houses east of Linstead Lane, which was recently approved, because it was 10 houses, I presume that meant it was a major application, because it wasn't 9, it was 10. I mean, none of those suggested techniques were employed by the applicant, and in fact there was no engagement with the community at all at outline stage. There was no dialogue with the parish council or ward councillors. In fact, none of us had any idea it was coming. We just got an email to say this application has been validated. That was the first we'd heard of it. And at 7:17, it says information on how engagement has been undertaken, the issues raised and how these have been responded to should be submitted as part of any application. Now, I don't recall that was actually done, so I don't think the applicant fulfilled that, and they wouldn't have been able to anyway, because they hadn't undertaken any engagement apart from with officers. So I'm wondering if we can toughen up 717 a bit. I mean, maybe we say that information on how engagement has been undertaken, etc., must be submitted as part of any application, and I think officers need to check for that, and they shouldn't validate an application if that has not been demonstrated. It's totally unacceptable that developers can slap in a major development application and the community doesn't know it's coming and knows nothing about it. A separate point is probably not relevant to the SCI, but I think there should be an obligation on officers to let ward councillors and the parish council know that a major application in their ward is imminent, because particularly when you've got a standard response time of 3 weeks. I mean, I know that's often extended, but if you don't know it's coming, 3 weeks is really no time at all to prepare for it. But as I said, I'd certainly like to see the word must in 717. Moving on to 722, it says the council will notify town or parish council of relevant planning applications in their area, inviting comments. I think we should be adding in there, notify ward councillors. I know that does happen, but I think it should be referenced. Under 725, it says if the application is considered at planning committee, the council will provide applicants, town and parish council representatives, and those who've commented on a planning application an opportunity to register to speak at planning committee. I think we need to make clear that that opportunity is restricted to one per category. It's only one applicant can speak, one parish council representative can speak, albeit more than one parish council can speak, and only one resident can comment either for or against, because I think the way it's worded at the moment suggests that anybody who registered would be able to speak, and that's not the case. And then finally, under 732, appealing a planning decision, it talks about how the applicants can appeal if they disagree with the council's decision to refuse the application. There's absolutely no mention of any right to appeal if a party disagrees with the decision to approve an application. For example, a parish council might consider that planning law's been incorrectly interpreted and that an application should have been refused, so we should have an opposite paragraph explaining what that that opportunity exists and what that process would be. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Does have any officers got a comment or feedback on that?
Yes, just in particular the 7.17 and insertion of the word must. Yeah, that quite a few people who responded to the consultation did ask for that as well. And we considered it, and we spoke to the development management team, and they advised that we can't require it because it wouldn't be a reason for refusing a planning application, so it would not be a reasonable request. So that was their view. So that's what we decided to keep that. The other points, I think, yeah, we can add clarification about legal reviews, about who can speak at planning committee. Your point about ward councillors, did you note that? Yeah, okay. Do you want to say something about that?
Yep, so the point about adding in notifying ward councillors, I think that's something that we will take back and discuss with the head of place services and the head of development management, and we will discuss that and we will report that back when this comes to P&R. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd certainly support having a row that says consult local members and local parish councils in that list of suggested ways of consultation. It says it is not mandatory, and many applicants don't do it. But if we don't at least recommend it as an option, they're even less likely to do it. Councillor Whiting, do you have some comments?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. What I wanted to say has been dealt with, really. I think it was that point. It's worth making the point that we expect them to do it, but we can't make them do it because we couldn't refuse the application if they didn't. And I think that's spelled out in the responses in the paper. And just picking up on the other point that Councillor Speed made with regards to appeals against the decision to allow development, which is presumably via a JR, I think it is quite important that we spell out how anybody that objects to a decision to approve is able through the courts to test that. because it is their right to do that if they want to, and we should say so. So I fully support the call from Councillor Speed for that. But other than that, Chairman, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Kavanagh?
Thank you. It reads really nicely. As a fairly new councillor, you pick up a lot of stuff as you go along, so it's nice to see the structure and clarification of things that I might not have been 100% sure about, but knew enough to get by on. So hopefully it will also read well for residents as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bonney?
Yeah, one thing that's come to my attention recently is that with applications that are controlled by KCC, so they're still planning applications, and we as an authority, I think officers look at them as well as members of the public. But what's clear to me as a result of something that's happened in my ward is that we're not publishing on our portal the full details of those planning applications. So if I take, for example, a KCC school application, we published 3 documents. There was actually about 24. So it meant that anyone looking on the planning portal thinks they are seeing all the planning documents. They're clearly not. And I do think that our portal should be reflecting what's on KCC's, or there is a mechanism that, you know, that our portal diverts to KCC on those applications, because it is really confusing as a member of the public, even as a councillor, thinking, well, there's only 3 documents here. There's not even a commentary on what the application is. That's because it's on the KCC website and not the Swell one. So if they leave a comment, I'm not even convinced that it gets to the right party, quite frankly. So I think that, you know, these all fall within the borough. They might be administered by KCC, but things like conservation, our officers give an opinion on, etc. So I do think that loop needs to be closed. And certainly the documents, from a public understanding point of view, they either need to be signposted to one or the other. You can't have this mishmash of just putting some documents on there.
Thank you. I think we can, I'm sure somebody can take a look at that. Absolutely. Thank you for calling that to attention. I think it's an important issue, and potentially one of the few advantages of future unitarisation might be a reduction in those unclosed circles, but that may be the only advantage. But we shall see how that discussion goes tomorrow. If any further?
So my other comment really was around on our Reg 18 and 19, we don't explicitly set out the minimum 6-week consultation period, and I think that was a question earlier, but I think in order to comply with the law, we have to say that. So it might be longer, but we have to say what the minimum is so that people know, and to have that commitment of when it will be reviewed.
Thank you. I agree, and compliant with our own consultation policy that we passed set 8 days ago, or whenever we did that. Councillor Speed?
Yes, I think it should be consistent with what we discussed at P&R. So it should say it's a minimum of 6 weeks, but we should make the point that the relevant committee does have the discretion to extend it in cases such as Reg 18 and Reg 19 consultations. Going back to the point about Para 717, if the recommendation from officers is that the word must is an unreasonable request, I do think that officers should note in their report what consultation has taken place and how it's been responded to, and highlight if there's been no consultation, because I think that is an important thing to know, because some developers are very good, and they engage with the community and they listen to what the community's got to say, and they adjust their proposals accordingly before they submit it. Others literally don't bother to talk to anybody and just whack the application in. And I do think that's a point that needs to be highlighted in a standard report, just so that people are aware of whether there's been any engagement or not.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We will discuss that with the development management team, and I said report back in the P&R report in, I think it's not for 6 weeks or something, P&R, but yeah, we'll report back then.
Thank you very much. Councillor Money, any more?
Yes, sorry. It's to bring the point up here, because it's for discussion, obviously it's a working group, and put it on people's horizon, because I think it needs to come up in the Constitution, and having 2 major applications in my ward live, is that we must, as a council, address the fact that having 3 minutes to speak on a major application is just total. I mean, it's ridiculous. Someone's extension, you can speak on it for 3 minutes. When you've got, either 8,400 houses or, an example last week, solar farm, major applications, and you've got 3 minutes to speak about it, that you cannot even begin to cover, even discussing some of the conditions that should be amended or tweaked, etc., or to give a full understanding. And I'm not saying go on for half an hour, but I do think it is a fairly difficult thing to do, to try and summarise in 3 minutes the issues facing some of these applications, which, to be fair, the applicants have quite often had 3 or 4 years to address the issues, and it's changed considerably over that time. And actually, to be able to reflect on that and to talk about, as I say, Section 106 and conditions, etc., and noting that Section 106 should be published well before the day the decision is made. And that is a point of law that's come up elsewhere in judicial review, because we are really bad at publishing Section 106s in advance of a decision being made. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. I'm going to check with officers. My instinct is that is a Constitution Working Group decision, so I'm very happy to take that, and I will write to the chair of the Constitution Working Group and ask him to consider that at their next meeting. But I think that is the appropriate forum for that discussion. If there are no more comments, the recommendations have been moved and seconded. So all those in favour? That appears to be unanimous. I think, Kelly? I've turned myself off before saying there's nothing further on the agenda, so thank you very much all for your attendance this evening. And I think we should say thank you very much to Chris for doing his first council report. We were very swiftly brought to conclusion, so very thorough indeed. Thank you very much all. Good evening.